This channel supports the use of ADBLOCK.
Neo Cortex is the worst thing to happen to Crash Bandicoot 4. The absolute worst. I freaking love Crash Bandicoot. It's one of my absolute favorite franchises of all time. I've played all the mainline Crash games and even the Game Boy Advanced ones. And I'm not even a real big fan of platformers in general, but something about the 2.5D style of Crash really got to me back in those days and still does now. So obviously when Crash 4 was released, I was totally hyped for it. I didn't even bother looking at any promotional stuff for it because I already knew I wanted to play it regardless. So when the new Guacamelee-esque mechanics were introduced, I was okay with them. A little derivative, sure, but acceptable. And then, of course, I was shocked with the introduction of new characters. I wasn't sold on Tawna at first because it was such a dramatic shift of pace and how totally new it was compared to the moves added to Crash over the first 3 games. But it mainly just added a grapple gun mechanic and wall jumping. It took a while, but I eventually got used to it. I even had a little bit of fun playing with that character. Then they introduced Dingodile and he came with an even bigger shift in mechanics with his vacuum pack and his hover jump ability. Again, it took a while, but I did get used to it. Then came Neo Cortex, and he's just the absolute worst dog shit character and the worst thing that happened to Crash 4. The fact that certain levels force you to play as Cortex only makes this so much worse. Neo Cortex is stupid and he should have never been included in the game. Absolute shit. Allow me to explain. You see, with Tawna and Dingodile, despite the fact that they have mechanics that are quite different to Crash himself and force you to adjust your style of play, they technically still have a lot of similarities that allow you to adjust comfortably to what's new without being too much of a shock to the system. Tawna still maintains the double jump and Dingodile has his hover jump, but they both technically have mid-air jump manipulation. And if you're a panic jumper like me, you'll find that very helpful indeed in moments of poor judgment. On top of this, the grapple gun or hook shot acts as Tawna's secondary attack, while still maintaining her melee attack for close combat. Dingodile, on the other hand, requires the usage of TNT to make the vacuum gun an actual weapon, but he too still retains a normal melee attack. Cortex? Well, all that shit is out the window and he resembles almost absolutely nothing of the original Crash moveset nor the new added characters. There's no double jump for Neo Cortex, only his stupid headbutt dash charge whatever mechanic. Not only does this mean that there's no mid-air jump manipulation, Neo Cortex changes the way you perceive possible jump heights in the game because he simply cannot reach any higher than a single jump. And when you've spent the entire game basically adjusting to seeing heights according to a double jump or at least a boosted jump from Dingodile, suddenly having to revert back to a single jump really feels like a terrible drastic shift. And that's not the only problem with the jump, because the dash also has a fixed distance and does not allow for a cancellation halfway, nor a change in direction. Once you hit dash, you're basically committed to anywhere you end up. This throws the mechanic of being able to correct your jump in the event of a misstep completely out the window. No secondary jump correction, no saving yourself in the event of a mistake, just Then there is of course Cortex's main attack, which is now a range attack and is directional. This goes so far against everything the other characters and the entire history of Crash has set up in its mechanics. There is no longer an AoE attack, you now have to aim your attacks, and in the event you miss, Cortex doesn't have a melee attack to back that up. They don't even give you twin stick aiming mechanics, which puts you in the really old-fashioned aim as you walk type gameplay, which is absolute trash. Look, I really enjoy the level design of Crash 4, but the implementation of Neo Cortex into the game is a terrible and stupid decision. He's just too damn far removed from what the majority of the game is and what the entire game has been teaching you up until that point. Platformers of this style often introduce new mechanics on top of existing ones, and perhaps even when there is a necessary shift, some of the original concepts still exist so that the transition into new mechanics is easy and natural. Guacamelee does this perfectly. It adds new move after new move and increases the complexity of its puzzles and platforming with each new implementation, and then sometimes changes the mechanics entirely by making you go into chicken mode, which has a different method of fighting and puzzle solving entirely, but some of the basic core mechanics in chicken mode are similar with the mechanics of lucha mode, and so it has a sense of continuity. It builds on itself, constantly letting you learn and familiarize yourself with the new mechanics each time. But in Crash 4, you build and build and build on the existing moveset, and then when Neo Cortex is introduced, and by the way, he's introduced way late into the game, you're just expected to forget everything you've learned and grown accustomed to so far, and just learn a totally brand new way to play the game. Toys for Bob did right with almost everything else in Crash 4, but this design choice is just totally unforgivable. Whoever greenlit this idea and whoever playtested the Cortex mechanic and gave it a pass really freaking screwed up here, because playing as Neo Cortex sucks ass. I hate it. 10 out of 10, Game of the Year.